Hey everyone, my guest today is the actor Chris Bauer. Chris has appeared in over 300 episodes of television, 40 feature films, several theater productions on and off Broadway and in Chicago. But most memorable for me is his role as Mitch in the Broadway production of A Streetcar Named Desire. He also originated roles in plays by David Mamet, Jez Butterworth, John Patrick Shanley, and so many more. His many long-running television show credits include his roles on The Wire, True Blood, The Deuce, Heels, Fellow Travelers, For All Mankind, and more. Most recently, you've seen him all over your Instagram algorithm because he is in a Marvel film called Thunderbolts with Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan and a whole bunch of cool people. There is so much more we're going to talk about today with one of my oldest friends, Chris Bauer. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Do you remember when we first met?
Tell me, tell me your memory.
Well, I was just curious if you would remember this too, because I was brand new in New York City. It was
Okay.
1992, and I had just finished school. And a common friend of ours, Alex, said he was going to go meet his friend for like coffee or something. And I was just like, that was when I was going to take a cab everywhere because I just thought I'd never figure
That
out
was
New York.
scary on the subway, yes. Does Alex have a last name?
Draper.
The best, Alex Draper, yes.
Um, and he brought me with, and I met you, and that was like a month into being in the city, and I had the best time. And it's a vivid memory for me because I thought, oh, there's other people who want to live a creative life, who are funny, who are delighted to sit there and kill 2 hours drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And it was a little break in my anxiety about what the hell am I going to do in New York.
What's so amazing about that is I had met Alex, I think the summer before, because I was cast at the Berkshire Theater Festival's summer season, and I
Mhm.
was the only one in this company that had not gone to Yale. I don't know what I was doing there. I hadn't gone to grad school for acting, and it was so incredibly intimidating in theory, right? Like seeing the cast list and sort of learning from the artistic director who I was joining. And A, to meet Alex, who truly is like, if you have any preconceived idea of what a theater drama student would be like, he's the most disarmingly funny, wonderful
Yeah,
person, as was everyone. Raphael, there were all these incredible people, I guess, from your class. My dog wants to join us. Sorry, Chris. Um,
that's
Come
okay.
on in. And so that he was so instrumental in my just understanding that it's okay that I didn't go to Yale Drama School, or maybe it's not, but for a while it felt like it was okay. And drama students, they're just like you and me. And then meeting you, who is like such a kind of cool,
Oh,
rock and roll vibe completely changed my predisposed idea about what it was. It probably was strange to you to be at Yale Drama School based on your own
oh,
history and relationship to it, which maybe that's a place for us to kind of walk into this conversation together.
yeah.
Um, because you were not, I don't feel like you were doing plays every day from the moment you got out of the womb, like
Mm.
some people. Tell a little bit about your journey to Alex Draper and me.
Well, Alex was in the class ahead of me, and so he had been out for a year the day that I met you. And I forgot about all that Berkshire stuff. I heard so many stories about Berkshire or whatever. Like everybody had the best time. Um, and I was very young when I went to Yale. I was 22. I think I turned 23 that fall, and it was a bit of a fluke that I ended up there. And there were a lot of there were just a lot of unknowns. Like my family, I'm third generation Angelino, born in Los Angeles, and the East Coast was just it was like Mars in terms of my family culture. I honestly didn't know what the Ivy League was. Um, so it was never really in my plans to go there, but it was always in my plans. You know, I've always had a bit of a craving for wisdom without knowing it, and it would appear in these, you know, kind of abstract callings. And I always knew I wanted to feel like I knew what I was doing as an actor. And implicit in that was it was really likely that I'd ever make a living at it. But I could, if I could walk the earth, at least knowing, well, I can do Ibsen, I can do Shakespeare, I can do Beckett, I understand the evolution of modern acting theory, and I'm delivering pizzas. At least I know what I'm doing. So I always wanted to train somewhere where supposedly you left and you knew what you were doing. And Yale was one of those places. So I ended up going there, but I was so young and it was so unfamiliar that I really didn't think I could do it. I mean, every 2 weeks I was kind of like, this is not for me. Like, it's too hardcore, it's too competitive, it's too demanding. Um, like for example, Yale was where I learned that it was really important to be on time. That's what I was dealing with when I got there. I was, it
Which
was
is not easy. That's not that's no small thing.
no, for a young man who's 22 who had already kind of come apart at the seams before that.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, totally profound, just committing to that because I understood the creative kind of math of discipline, but I had never equated it to, and believe me, it took years to fully integrate this, but
Yeah,
how I was living my life, you know, the choices I made in my free time, all that kind of stuff. So um,
right.
it was really hard, but Liev Schreiber and I were classmates, and we were both we were the two youngest, I think, in the class. And I think we bonded over our immaturity. And by the time 3 years passed, I didn't make a ton of progress in my, I think, emotional growth, but I made a lot
Uh-huh.
of progress in my original mission, which was I understood what we do,
Hmm.
um, which had nothing to do with being prepared to make a living. Um, and that was the next lesson, you know, once I was done.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just be on time. What are we being on time for? Like, is there a job to actually show up for, and how do you get one?
And what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Like,
Do
what?
you mean as an auditioner or as a human on the planet? What do you mean
Well,
specifically?
if you're a diehard show guy like me, there is no difference between the auditioner and the human on the planet. And that was one of the problems that I had was what is the value system or the sort of ideology that I could extract some reward from, whether or not I was getting a paycheck or whether or not you picked me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because in the absence of that, all there was I either got the job or didn't. I either got the audition or didn't. And for everyone I didn't, you or somebody else did. So this chasm starts to form between what I want and what I don't have, what others are getting, and my growing anxiety that I don't, in fact, know what I'm doing.
Mm,
I know how to almost project the quality of knowing what I'm doing, but that might as well be a performance, you know?
w- when you look back, because I think there's a moment, there's a moment in one's career if one sticks with this thing, and you have for decades now, there's a moment where we go from I don't know what I'm doing, and that's a scary thing that you're going to get found out about, to the moment where, like, of course I don't know what I'm doing. That's the creative process, and that's like the joy of the thing, to a certain degree. Or you're no longer, that's no longer the question or the fear. Do you remember in your own journey, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I think that's been true for me, like that doesn't scare me anymore. I don't expect to know what I'm doing. I expect and hope to be in a room with people that together we can solve the problem by just talking and listening to each other. And hopefully there's great writing. And then three-quarters of the job is done for you, because then you just have to show up and say the damn thing. Um, can you think about when that stopped being the question that you woke up with every day?
It hasn't gone away.
Okay. Does it
So
still scare you?
yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think the way you just described it is accurate. And there's an equivalent to that sort of um, way through the experience. But knowing what I'm doing was shorthand for skipping where I was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, um, so every performance, every attempt to construct something that had some creative value was sort of like, sailing around the world and like bon voyage and waving, but there's a fucking giant hole in the boat. Like there's no way you're gonna do it.
It's
It's a
so
it's a
awful.
it's a leaky ship
Yeah.
because anything in terms of what we do that has any value starts with the authentic truth. It starts with a state of being that actually corresponds to where you are in that moment. I mean, it's such a
Hmm.
paradox because all of our acting training is like be in the moment, meet the moment. Um, and you can't even recognize a moment if you're sort of um, forecasting what you would prefer the moment to be, or demonizing it like this moment is filled with complete exposure because I'm insecure, confused, unimaginative. Um, I am missing the thing. This is a whole other conversation, but
Yeah.
the inventory of psychological and pathological affect that can sort of trickle into your work that ultimately adds up to like, well, yeah, you can do it, but I can't. I have to compensate in order to be able to do it. Or you look that certain way, or you're just confident. I don't have that. I have to compensate. So that
Mhm.
idea, which ironically ends up being, for me personally, almost a divinely implanted gift because that is what all these characters that I've made a living playing have in common is that they are trying to kind of get over on the world and project a level of power they don't have or et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But until and this is when I just felt like I was born. I just finally took my attention off kind of the inhale of like, and put it all on the, and just sat there like a fucking plain, unremarkable, proudly boring, lost soul. And then started to story tell from there, and then started to find where a character can be real from that place. Um, I was 100% unhireable until then
Uh-huh.
because I should have been doing community theater. It was like fake, 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 fake. I was brave, but who cares? A vibration starts. I mean, because we started in theater, so I still use that as sort of like the paradigm for experiment, you know,
Right.
and growth. And it's an empty space, and then you're there. And there's a bunch of people, you know, if you're a guy like me, you're trying to see who they are out of the corner of your eye while you're working. But which reminds, I have to tell you a story later if it comes up, but because it never goes away. But
Right. Don't forget to tell that story.
Okay, I won't. But and you don't have any tension, and you're just ready to take your punishment. Like, and it's just kind of like I think I was doing a play that Jez wrote, Jez Butterworth. It was the third play I did with him, and it just hit me like I have to be as boring as I possibly can in this character. It sounds so cliche. It sounds like Bill Murray and Tootsie, but like I had to. Like I just have found the greatest sort of fringe benefit of all this work is getting to undergo these sort of psychological taboos like I'm not worthy, all of my insecurity, and just letting it be on full display in my work and just frankly surviving it. Like that's it. That's the beginning and the end of my humanity is like, guess what, dude? It's no big deal.
Right. I got through it. But do you have fun
I have a
in
lot
your
of
profession?
That's a great question. Sometimes, sometimes. I have an amazing time in the dressing room.
Uh-huh.
Um, for a while there, I had an amazing time, from between when the curtain went down and the cab ride home. Um, but I've never, between you and and I was very excited to talk to you because I like you so much, but I think I told you I, reluctantly sort of show up because I've had an obtuse and kind of mystical way through this career, um, which is my preface before. I honestly would not know if I was having fun or not while I'm working. I just something else happens, um, and I love it, but it just feels like my head turns off,
Hmm.
and um, I have an experience, and I've tried. Now that I've been doing it for 30 years, I try to sort of stay in this neutral state that is less evaluative and um, more like guardianship of this certain state of being. With my friends and my family, I share too much and I overstate everything, and I am a classic sort of like um, ruiner of fun by pointing out how much fun everything is. But in my work, I don't know what the fuck is happening.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Um, you have had sort of this remarkable thing happen. I mean, first of all, you've just worked, from Atlantic Theater Company to Steppenwolf to, you've just been around a lot of people who have been devoted to theater and theater stories. Jez Butterworth is just one of the most glorious storytellers on the planet, I think. Um, but so you've kind of gotten to be, a person who hops from play to play to play in that way. I have to just mention, because I'm scared the time will run out, you're married to one of my most favorite people on the planet, Laura Bauer, who some people know her as Cunningham, some people know her as sharing a last name with you, who truly is one of the most talented artists we know as a costume designer, but she adds so much more to everything she works on. So calling her the costume designer is such a limiting moniker because she's just a true artist. And so I just want to shout out to one of my favorite people on the planet while I have you here.
Couldn't have said
Um,
it better. Thank you. She'll love hearing that, by the way.
she's, well, it's true. Um, but you've also been on really like what people who start in this business think is the brass ring, and you may have many different feelings about it. You've been on long-running television shows that seem to do that thing that great shows can do, which is they kind of hit on some sort of cultural zeitgeist, and people somehow find vampire stories unbelievably relatable, which who would have thunk, right? Like who would
Me,
have thunk, right?
I
And
wouldn't have.
so, I mean, you've done I listed so many of them, but I want to just start with True Blood for a minute because you got to live with a character for a very long time. And I guess I'm asking, uh, was there a kind of peace that came with that? Um, Knowing I have the job, I'm not proving myself, we're in year 3 at this point. What did that feel like?
Hmm. Great question. Uncomfortable answer because I wanted to quit after the second season because I felt like, um, when I say I felt like, it's not the same as actually felt this, but my insecurity and my thought process was like, dude, you're just gonna spill chili on your tie for the next 5 years. And
You're that guy.
yeah, and like nobody gets it, and you're really good, and look at what all your friends are doing, and you're gonna trip on your shoelace. And it's just self, comparison. I mean, I'm just so fucking human that way, and I
Yeah.
just really try not to let it run my life, but I'm also not gonna pretend like I don't have that uh ongoing relationship with the I guess sort of shadow side of my ego. But the only reason I'm telling you that is because there's this slightly more dominating voice that I believe, again, just comes from this like guardianship of muses who are nudging me um, into more genuine creative value. And I heard this voice say, could you spill chili on your tie or trip on your shoelace better than anyone's ever done that, ever?
Wow.
And this is all, by the way, during a read through in season 3.
Oh my God.
I,
This is what's in your head.
yes, I
Yes.
totally remember it.
Yeah.
And I was like in my head, like, no, I mean, I'm not a great physical comedian. I don't, no. And then the other voice said, then shut the fuck up and read the scene.
Mm.
And, I think analogously often about, because I love baseball, and like a good batter just looks at pitches, and there's just no, it's infinite what the seam of the ball can do. And how do you get your bat on that ball? Well, guess what? If you're not gifted the opportunity to pick up a bat and take a swing at it, you'll never know. And I have had nothing but opportunities to look at pitches. So for me, all the gratification of this work is in just staying in the box, growing the sort of list of just swings at the plate. So for the next 5 years, I happily was a buffoon and um, never perfected it. I've never perfected anything in my life. I don't expect to, other than um, potentially a reluctance to give up perfectionism. I've gotten really close,
Wow.
but like, so yeah. Sorry to take so long, but True Blood
No,
was an amazing opportunity, but like everything for me, it was like this huge revelation that was not like, oh my God, I can relax for a second. It was the opposite. It was like, dude, you can never relax. If you listen to that voice in your head, the first thing you're going to do is bore the shit out of everybody and stop having anything to offer an audience, which is all I care about. Like,
did you have any relationship? First of all, what a humbling, that's so humbling. Like that is a story of humility, right? Like it's so humbling. Like why aren't like I mean, I think women we all have it like I want to be the sexy one or like whatever that is, just
yeah,
sort of owning like, oh, forget labels, but they're out there and
Yeah,
just sort of going, so I'm in this lane? Okay.
it is
Okay.
happening. But I just want to say that like I can't take any credit for the humility that rescued me. Like I don't
Hmm.
know where that comes
Where
from.
it came from. Yeah.
I'm just so lucky that it came to me and through me, and I recognized that because one thing I know about our work is that whenever we are bigger than the character or we are bigger than the story, or more practically, we are bigger than our co-stars or the people we're in the scene with, you're on the wrong path.
Right.
That's just the beginning of the end for me. Rigidity, atrophy, decrepitude. I see it. And when I see it, I have compassion for it, but I never want to be it. I'd rather be invisible and underexposed than overexposed and being like a skeleton. You know what I'm saying? Like just like rigid,
Yeah.
bony, with nothing to offer people like me, because I primarily identify myself as an audience member. I'm always watching the work that we do for some kind of instruction about how to be closer to my fellow human being, period.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, did you, I don't know, you said like third generation Californian, not in the business, right? You're not a Nepo baby. Um, what was it like to have financial stability for a moment at that
You have to
time?
you have to put a parenthetical in this, the Chris Bauer actor, psychotic, insecure. I mean,
Wait, let me write that all
financial
down.
stability, financial stability, like I I don't know what that is. Like
Okay.
I don't know what there's too many moving pieces in what we do to
Well, you weren't delivering pizza anymore.
yeah, but you just go, you sort of go like, we had kids, um, we were lucky to buy an apartment, and then, you know, the kids, God willing, grow, get stronger, take up more space. The apartment, God willing, is where you live for a long time. The job comes and goes like, weather.
Right?
So all of a sudden, the constants that you have in life are where your financial obligations are. Your source of meeting those financial obligations are by definition unstable and um, temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, I've very early on, I put that in the, okay, can't deal with that pile. I'm just going to work. I'm just going to work. And,
Oh my
um,
God.
but honestly, I'm trying to answer that question. Honestly, like I've never really felt that feeling of relaxation of like, okay, well, everything's fine because, I mean, for example, the strike that we all went through,
Yeah.
that was ultimately an incredibly um, curative sort of cleansing experience. But at the beginning, it was obviously a manifestation of like, no matter what, you can't make money the way you've been making money for 25 years. What else can you do? And boom, I time traveled back to when I first got to New York and I ran out of money. I got my first Law and Order, $500 for a day, thought I was set for life, was out of money in a month. And I remember going to the temp place and they're like, well, what are your skills? And I was like, I can stand, I can sit, and literally they're like, you can't do anything, dude. You can stuff envelopes.
I can stand and I can sit. You hired.
Seriously. you know, or you can answer phones. And I was like, I actually don't like talking on the phone. So,
Hmm.
and I was kind of like this, you know, the strike happened and it was like, whoa, I haven't really cultivated many more skills since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel
I
like,
can fake wrestle,
oh yeah,
right?
yeah, fake for sure.
But you look so good doing it. Wild Bill, can we
Yeah,
jump for a minute to
yeah,
heels?
yeah. Let's,
Uh, I know you said fun doesn't really come into, like, that is not a word. Like, if we were playing charades and someone was like, actor, fun, they wouldn't say Chris Bauer. But, but I mean, I would, but was like, there is something wild and hilarious about getting to play roles that are very far from our everyday life habits.
yeah.
Um, did you enjoy inhabiting the world of that character on Heels?
I loved it because I'm a wrestling fan. And so it
Yeah.
was fun. And I know
Did
a
you
bunch.
wrestle in high school? Did you ever do it?
No, I played football, but the wrestling workouts were way too hard. I was
Yeah.
like, but
Nope.
I know a bunch of people in independent pro wrestling in California for various reasons and was, you know, really into it and kind of involved for a while before Heels ever came along. So, and I'm still a huge wrestling fan because it, for me, it is the ultimate projection of my theater nerd, my original theater nerd. You know, for a year before I went to Yale, I was going to my parents had moved up north. I lived with them there, and I was going to the campus at UC Berkeley and basically posing as a student. And I did like 5 plays in a row at UC Berkeley. Um, and that's how much I love theater until they were like, "What's your major?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't go here." You know, and um, so wrestling for me is the ultimate performance. It's the ultimate theatrical vocabulary and the ultimate cathartic sacrifice. You know, that it's kind of like what they do for an audience is a really blown up version of like, you know, our old school off Broadway like super hardcore play stuff that we used to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, so getting it was fun to be in that world, but I also really wanted to honor it because I know actually what happens to those men and women, and I
Yeah.
just didn't want to fake it. I didn't want
Right.
to be the poser guy, so I like put on a lot of muscle and trained a lot, and and yeah, that I have to say that was fun. That was fun for sure.
Well, you killed it. You killed it. And I'm sure your friends in that world made you feel like you did them proud because
He did, which
you
was the
ate it. Like you took a bite out of that and you just did not look back. And it was so much fun watching you just live that life out loud on film. It was thrilling.
thank you.
Um, so you live in LA now? Is that your
Yeah,
home base?
yeah, pretty much.
So do you connect? Like, do you feel like this is my home?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do. I tried so hard for so long to feel like that in New York. And it just was, you know, to stay on theme, it was just kind of got to the point where the sort of Zelig in me, because it does, there is also this thing, I was just lucky. Like there just isn't a ton in the way f- kind of to delineate me from my surroundings, which really helps in my work. But like, you know, it just started to feel too insincere and fake. By the way, I'm really grateful for New York because I made a huge living and I continue to play all these people who are sort of that world.
yeah,
Um, but I noticed when I would fly west, because for True Blood, we had moved out to the end of Long Island. So for the first 2 or 3 years, I was commuting from East End of Long Island to LA where we shot. And I started noticing that if I fell asleep on an airplane, I would always wake up about an hour away from LA because I could feel the sun coming in the window from a different place in the sky. And I have been so fortunate to stay as busy as I have. So the idea of home, a kind of involuntary state of being where your body recognizes it's not at work and it's safe, um, is really precious. And that's kind of how I feel out here, you know? I just think it is what it is. That being said, I love it everywhere. And let's do this again tomorrow, and I'll be like, I can't take it. I'm moving back to New York. I
You're
can't wait.
going. I just want to end at your beginning a little bit. Can you tell me, like, who was in your house growing up? Like, who was there?
I was the oldest of four, both my mom and dad. They got married young, started a family young, both from LA, both sort of pretty muted Irish Catholic, um, kids. My dad was from the bad side of town. So my mom was from the nicer part, but both in East LA. And my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was he won the Pulitzer. He had a column at the LA Times. He was a really intelligent, dynamic, successful alcoholic.
Did you
My
know him?
No, he died when I was 2.
Okay.
My dad's grandfather was just an alcoholic, no Pulitzer Prize or anything like that. So they had a fairly rough time. And I think when they started a family, they just did it because that's what you do.
Did they
And
stay married?
they did. Yeah, my mom died in 2017 and they were still married. Um, and I was the oldest, and I just, it was like, I think that the birth order thing, I don't know that much about it, but there's probably certain aspects of my personality as the oldest of four
Yeah.
that are spoken for based on that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you,
Predetermined.
I can tell you something. If we're winding down,
Yeah.
that ties into this this question.
And the story that I'm not saying goodbye to you until you tell the story.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, my mother had a friend. My mother was very pretty, and she had a friend who whose kids did commercials. So my mom, when I was 3.5, took me one day to some lady's office. These are like very hazy memories. And we went in there, and this lady smoked cigarettes and stared at me. She had big glasses. And we left, and I was just like, you know, what is that? You know? And then the next thing you know, kind of the same thing happened, except it was a bunch of dudes in denim smoking and staring. And I got cast in a commercial. So I got my SAG card when I was just turning 4 years old. And nobody in our family was in show business. Nobody in our family. It was literally like my mom, who was 22, and her other friend, who was like 22, had cute babies, and they read something in the paper, and they
Yeah.
got us agents.
And you
And
booked.
yeah, but I didn't know what the fuck was going
Of
on.
course
It was
not.
like, because my mom, she was pretty hardcore, especially then. She was an amazing person who ended up being a therapist, but at the time she was just kind of like getting through, I guess. But we'd go, and so I ended up doing a bunch of these commercials, from like 4 to 8 or 9 years old, until I finally had enough kind of sense of self to be like, can we just stop this? This is weird. I don't get it. I don't like it. it just feels like a stacked deck here. Like, you know, I just remember, and I think it's relevant in terms of as you develop as an artist, these original systems of success or failure. You're given no instructions, you're a kid, you walk in, you start to intuit that if they lean forward or laugh, that's a good thing. If they look at their watch and don't talk much, that's a bad thing. And what means good or bad? Well, if they say good things, my mom's really happy.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't say anything, my mom's kind of bummed. So that's the whole sort of operating system.
Right. That's the ecosystem of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
That kicks out in sussing out an identity as a performer, which is why I think it was so hard for me to break that pattern way, way back, which is like, dude, just be unremarkable. That was the beginning of everything, because that was a total counterpoint to those original experiences. And on the other hand, I'm so grateful because
Wait,
without,
Chris, that is so deep. Just by the way, this idea of like, I mean, that just what you just said, and also like our mothers and our mother, like she loves me, she doesn't love me. I get the thing, I don't like that is unbelievable. Just
isn't that,
sorry, just
no,
just
it's so huge.
yeah. I mean that's a whole other, but
It's
yes,
so huge. But
yeah.
it still is those experiences. Like I just finished the this limited series up in Calgary. I finished a few months ago. And I was up there and I was just like, why am I in such a cranky mood? Like,
Mm.
what is up? What is up? And kind of the, first month or two of production. And it's just like, for brevity's sake, I could just tell that I was associating this experience with emotions that didn't apply yet to the experience. No one had given me a reason to be wary. No one had given me a reason to be reluctant, to comply, et cetera, et cetera. And I had this thought. I remember I did this commercial when I was about 8 years old. I didn't want to do it. It involved traveling somewhere. My mother couldn't take me. She was in a rock and a hard place because I had booked the commercial, but then she couldn't. And I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do that. If you can come with me, great. If you can't, I don't want to go. And she's basically like, you have no choice. You have to go do it, which I did. So I'm thinking about that and I'm going, what was that? And I basically kind of reason out when it was, vague memories of what it was for. I enter those terms into like a YouTube search window and that commercial pops up on YouTube from 1974. I had never seen it. I'd never saw any of those. And it was the most glorious kind of time travel, all moments, all time is in the now sort of thing, where I could sit in my suite at the Marriott in Calgary as a grown man doing what I love to do for a living, feel the gratitude of that, and then look at this old commercial where I was scared shitless, totally on my own, and confused, and see that the two were in a perpetual relationship, but they don't have anything to do with each other. Like, this might be like, old news for everybody else, but the fact that there's a past, a present, and a future, and that I still have some say in where my attention is going, is it in the present, the future, or the past? And there's so much freedom in that. None of these things, you don't get to have these experiences if you're like moving heavy shit for a living or staring at a computer to watch the stock market. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think our job is such an extraordinary gift because it gives you, like an artist, a real opportunity to soberly and bravely reflect on what a who am I is, what a person is. And I just feel like the only What's required of me is that I got to bring that into my work. So yeah, I'm heavy and stupid, and I overthink, but like, especially when we work on camera, what do you think you see in people's eyes? I mean, you see what they're struggling with. You see what they're thinking. You see the vulnerability of knowing for a fact they can't do it alone. Um, so total accidental monologue, but I just like, I love it so much. And is it fun or not? I guess so, but it's almost like I love it too much to even stop and have fun. Unless, and this is the story,
Okay.
I'm on stage and instead of being aware of all that shit that I just told you, I'm thinking, well, everyone's here to see me in a play, and there's nothing better than that. And I was doing a play called The Penitent that Mamet wrote. It was a world premiere. And I was just so sure that this was I didn't tell anybody this. I had been doing a series in New York. Laura and the kids were here. And the play came up after I wrapped the series. So instead of coming home and helping drive people and pick people up, I was like, can I stay here and do this play? To which my incredibly, endlessly supportive wife said, oh, yeah, you got to do that. So we're in previews, and I just know it's only a matter of time before, like, I become a somebody because of this play. And I'm in a scene, and it's the Atlantic, and out of the corner of my eye, I see an older gentleman with white hair and big glasses that, as I'm in the scene, profile, I can see just enough of this man to say to myself, holy shit, Martin Scorsese is in the theater, dead center of the house, and he appears to be riveted. And oh my God, I'm fucking killing it in this scene right now. And in that moment, I so remember feeling my acting get better. Like I got
Uh-huh.
so relaxed and so connected, and just there was zero effort in my way through this tricky Mamet scene. And it was just getting exciting because I knew there was going to be a pause coming up in about a half a page, and I could look out and just kind of glance over his head and see how much he was loving my work. And I'm just going like, I can't believe that director is seeing me do this. And finally that pause came and I got to look out, and I had made a mistake. It was not Martin Scorsese. No,
Nope.
I, I was mistaken.
You were mistaken.
And not only was it not him, but it was a woman who had fallen asleep with such ferocity that her mouth was wide open like this, like she like,
No, no.
and I thought her mouth was Martin Scorsese's glasses. And okay, it happens, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But I noticed that as soon as I realized it wasn't Martin Scorsese, my acting got way worse.
Mm,
Like, and I just I really was tickled by that. I got a huge kick out of it. And again, humbling humbling humility. It's like, it was so humbling to know that I'm still at the mercy of this vain fantasy, that the value of what I do is in other people's sort of um I kind of icons of success.
right.
To the degree where if in my imagination someone who I admire is watching me, I relax, I flow, I concentrate, and if it turns out it's not them, I get confused, I get self-conscious, I experience physical tension. And so the humility is in like I'm still so at the mercy of my humanity and my humanness. And it's kind of like if you can't beat them, join them. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
fucking fall in love with it. Like
Yeah. Because it's not going anywhere.
it's not going anywhere. And one of my favorite, when it's real, one of my favorite things is when a director says, I don't know, what do you think, Chris? And I go, I don't know. I don't think I know enough about it yet.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like such a dud answer, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's so human,
Yeah.
and I live for those.
What a what a what a story. What a story you are. What a story your life has been and continues to be, and just the openness and the vulnerability and it's just you're just a vessel for love and beauty and truth, and
Oh,
it's so amazing to kind of have this uninterrupted time with you. I'm so lucky. I'm going to do a thing that I end every episode with. You've been so incredibly generous. It seems dumb to ask for more, but I'm just going to ask you, and it's whatever comes to your head. Is there a little known fact about Chris Bauer that you can
oh yeah, I
share?
got a huge one.
All right. A
My
big known fact.
my first name is Mark.
Now we have to start all over again. Hey, everybody. My guest today is Mark Bauer. Um, okay,
Weird,
that's
right?
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to like, I don't know you as Mark, but I
I
would. I mean, it's all good.
I know it's really weird. It's really weird. And every time I turn around, someone's like, "Do you know Chris Bowers?" Or meet my friend Kristen. Like there are so many iterations of Chris Bauer.
Yeah.
Never ever run into another Mark Bauer.
No. Well, I look forward to running into Mark, aka Chris Bauer, in person really soon. Thank you for being on the podcast. This was pure joy for
Thank-
me.
Okay,
And I
me.
hope it wasn't torture for you.
No, I don't think so. It was good to see you. Thank
Bye,
you.
sweetheart. Mwah. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.